here. Thank you. Reverend McDowell, could you give us a
Yes,
little
sir.
word of prayer?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Creator, most loving Father, we thank you for this day and for all that you've allowed us to be about today. You've allowed us to come into this room to go through the materials and the questions and the inquiries about materials that are offered. We pray for sensitivity. And in so praying for sensitivity, we pray for two fallen leaders within the community of the city called Columbia. We pray for the family of Officer Reinhardt. Undergird them with your care. Touch them and yet allow them to know that as a city we stand with them. Be with Kevin Alexander Gray as we prepare ourselves for a funeral service tomorrow. Lord, we know that death has and takes no prisoners. We simply ask that you might undergird us, even in death, these two warriors, these two saints, might feel, their families feel and sense our support for them. We ask it, we claim it in your name. Amen.
Ready, Mayor? Thank you, Reverend McDowell. So I mentioned to council that in this season of the budget, we would be mostly doing budget workshops, but we also had a few work session items, some of which will have implications on the budget as well. But I also need just to have some housekeeping time, I think, for lack of a better word, so that I can make sure that I and the staff are always providing you with the information efficiently and in the way that you even want it, like what works best for you.
Where we can
So-
get to it.
All of that. And so we thought it would be helpful to incorporate a little tutorial today on our Minute Track agenda management system that our wonderful clerk manages and helps you manage, and is also always looking for other solutions that work even better. But until we have an additional or a different solution, we want to make sure that we're utilizing Minute Track efficiently and get feedback from you all on things that might help you with that. Similarly, item 2, GovQA, the Customer Relationship Management System update, Ms. ACM Benjamin will provide an update on how we're going to expand upon a platform that we already have to incorporate the ongoing requests you all have had for constituent services related items to be one place where everybody can see what's going on with these requests as they come in and track them and know that they're being attended to. And she'll talk about some of the other solutions that have been mentioned, but why we believe the GovQA system is the better system, just because of the way it will integrate with our City Works system and other things that are already in place at the City of Columbia.
Is this attitude clickbait fix or whatever
She,
you call it?
Mayor, it is not clickbait, but it will do and incorporate all the things that you know C-Click Fix
C-Click Fix.
would have done, but because of our technology in the city, this would be the better solution. So we'll get started with items 1 and 2, and then I'll talk you through our last few items as well. Erica?
Good afternoon.
Better pay that match board invoice, Barbara be calling.
Listen, get out my emails now. Good afternoon. I'm Erica Hammond, City Clerk for the City of Columbia. Just wanted to walk you through Minute Track. We appreciate you all putting up with our technology, but just wanted to let you know or remind you, I think you're quite familiar with the system because every Friday evening, every other Wednesday, and several times throughout the week, you receive an email that looks just like this. Within that email, you typically have an agenda that's attached, and it's just your basic agenda, right? This week, we attached the full board agenda, which had confidential documents included that are just for the attention of city council members. We don't do that often because of the file size of documents. It makes it nearly impossible to transmit them via email. And so the options that we have for you to view your packets include the links that are provided here. The link here says View Web Agenda, and this one allows you to download the PDF packet. So traditionally, you would click View Web Agenda directly from the email. And this takes you to our meeting portal that looks like this. Within the meeting portal, you will see that it gives you the meeting type, the meeting date and time, and the meeting location, which most of the time is accurate, but I noticed that for today it was not so. But here you have your agenda and you have an agenda packet. You'll see the items as they're listed on your paper agenda, but you don't see any backup materials. And this is because the items that were attached were for your eyes only. And so as a member of the public, if I logged in, this is what I would see. But as a member of City Council and the executive management team, if you log into the system, then you would see the personnel-related matters that were included in your packet.
You would see them on that agenda, because I always I always download the PDF onto my iPad.
Yes, sir, you would see it here, and I should have brought the keyboard up with me. But here you would log in where it says register. I'm already registered, so here you would log in, and you would use your credentials here. And because I have not logged in on this computer, it's not registering. But the good part about logging into Minute Track is once you log in, you stay logged in. Thank you, Ashley.
Unless the password's changed.
Unless the password is changed without you knowing. Thank you. And if you log out, it will save your password if you have your security features set up to do so. So from here, I'm going to attempt to remember my credentials. And that didn't work. So give me a minute. Y'all help me out. Does that say Edie?
No, that says
Yeah.
EM.
Oh, well, that would be the problem. Thank you, Mayor.
I can see that.
You all, I type all day. EDM.
Hold on.
Did it
gotta
again.
add M.
You keep hitting M.
Wants it to say EDH.
That's M.
That's a M.
It's, you got, no,
H-A-M.
you get it again.
You need a EDM?
I hit H.
You want EDM?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I think I do. Y'all give me a second.
Okay.
Well, the good part about the system is that I'm the administrator, so I can reset my password and your password. You don't call IT, you just reach out to me, and I have your passwords on hand. So I logged into the system, and now the information that I couldn't see previously, it is visible. You see that there? And if you just wanted to click on an attachment, and you'll see a confidential document is notated by the shield that was next to the item. And so it downloaded packet, and you open it. That's just one way of accessing the files. And I didn't think this through clearly. This is probably not the best venue for doing a demonstration. But any questions about how I got there? So anytime you see this shield, you know that it's a document that's for council's eyes only.
Any questions from those who are challenged email-wise?
If you went to the other one and downloaded to your iPad, would see that.
Well, here you have what we call the board agenda. If you're logged in, you're going to see a third packet, which is called the board agenda. That's, again, a packet that's just for city council members.
And that's one of the choices you have on the side when you download the other side of that, the left side of that first option.
Yes, sir. And when you're logged in. And here you have the full agenda packet. Luckily, today it was just 67 pages, but sometimes it ranges between, it can go up to 400 or 500 pages. And that's why it's very difficult to email you the entire packet. But in this,
Before you come to the meeting, or it'll take you all day to get it to download.
that's a good point. And so here you would have the full packet. You could choose to view it, or print it if you desired to do so, but it's in chronological order lined up with the agenda that we send out on Friday. Again, you have your agenda, which is just the face of the agenda that tells you what's going to be discussed. You have the agenda packet, which excludes any confidential items. Most commonly, confidential items are mostly related to boards and commissions because we don't want to publicly share individuals' personal information, and so we've opted as a policy to link those as confidential documents, and so those are the type things that you would find. So if you're trying to review your boards and commissions and prepare to make appointments, you want to be sure to log in into the system so that you can see all of the information that's being provided. Are there any questions? Anything else that I needed to address?
You need to show us what to do about meeting track. When Oddity has a question and she puts it out on meeting track, how do we respond?
That's part of the
So-
problem. You clicked the wrong button.
Right here we have,
Minute track right there.
You said meeting.
Oh, meeting. I thought I said minutes.
we don't use this
You don't use
feature.
it too often, do you?
Yeah.
Well,
He
you know,
reads my comments,
In,
so.
in recent months, I've had to use it quite often.
And so one thing
You
that
didn't show
Dr.
that to us when we got.
Oh,
sworn on.
okay. Well, one thing that Dr. Bustles is doing, and I would assume it's from here where you see the bubbles. Right here it says you can discuss the item. Well, here you click the bubbles, you insert your comment, and you click add comment, and then we all receive that comment via email. And so if you wanted to respond to her comment through the system, you would log in and go beneath her comment and click the bubble, and then it would create your comment. No.
What an overachiever.
Yeah. And so the,
But when she sends a question out, it sends us an email.
yes, sir.
And I have been responding straight off of that email. Am I supposed to go back into the agenda and?
If you should go back into the portal because it allows us to track it. An easy way of doing it is going to the
You send an
discussion.
email, it doesn't track it.
Right. And so then I go back and you may get it again because I put it in the system. But if you come back here and you click the discussion tab from the meeting portal, you see the comments here and you can add a comment and respond, you know, and just do it from the discussion tab. So when you all are done having your comments and we give the responses, I go in and I just print this page and we keep a record of it by just printing the page of comments. Here on your welcome tab or in your meetings tab, you see a full slate of your meetings. You'll see the minutes when after the meeting, especially a council meeting and some committee meetings, will send out a meeting summary, and this is where you find the summary, the minutes, the agenda, and the agenda packet. We try to keep everything in one place, except the videos. We're not logging the videos here. We hope that as we explore new systems that we're able to integrate the meeting agendas, backup materials, and videos in one location.
How long do you keep the agenda packet on there? Because several times I have tried to go back through my iPad and look at some of the backup material that was provided at a month ago. And it's no longer there.
Well, that's because I close meetings out so they don't show up in the web portal, in the app, but on the web portal, they're here. If you go back to some of the earlier years that we have used MinuteTrack, you will see that the information is still available.
So, Erica, let me ask.
Yes, sir.
Howard.
I was just gonna say, it's best to sign back into the agenda
Yes, sir. So what's the date on this one? Is that 20? So from 2017, this information is still out here. We don't delete it. If anything, we'll update it.
How far back in terms of archives does the minutes go back?
Our minutes in general go back to the 1800s, but not online unless you go to
They
the
are
digital.
archived.
Yes, sir. Our minutes are archived. We
So
have.
if you ask for a particular year, a
Mhm.
specific year,
Yes, sir.
okay,
We'll get it for you.
it goes back to 1800s?
Yes, sir. We have nice
Good grief.
minute books in the vault. They're handwritten, and I'd love to show them to you if you ever
No,
were
I don't want to
interested.
see them, I don't want to see them handwritten.
They're handwritten.
If they go back to 1800, it must be hieroglyphics.
Yes, it's beautiful. But the late 1800s, of course. But we also have a partnership with the South Carolina Digital Library where they scanned a lot of our older minutes, and they're online as well. So I can send you a link to that if you're ever interested in looking at
Now,
minutes.
no pun intended. Did you say handwritten?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So this is a quick overview of Minute Track. I use it and I try to put as much information out there as possible so that even on the weekends, if you need an ordinance, it's there. Whatever is coming up on the upcoming meeting agenda, I want backup. I stalk people for backup materials. When they see me calling, they go the other way. But we do our best, and Ms. Wilson supports us in making sure that we provide you with as much information as possible so that you can prepare for upcoming meetings. But we certainly want to hear from you about any concerns you may have, because we are endeavoring with the PMO and the procurement department to look at new vendors, as our contract with this vendor will come to an end later this year, and I would like to set us up with a more robust web-based agenda management system.
Well, you know, it's interesting because some of the materials that the city attorney and I were talking about, some of those materials come out of dated minutes that council sort of dealt with then,
Yes, sir.
pertaining to a particular issue.
Yes, sir.
An issue that we're constantly still working on, but we got the materials off of, what Howard calls it, meeting track?
They call it minute track.
I'm sorry.
Ed, it's amazing if you use that function, the information you can get prior to a meeting. I mean,
Well, you
it is
know-
just shocking how much information's on there.
Well, you know, it's amazing that I've been on council since 2016, and I'm just hearing about minute track.
Well,
And that's not an excuse for not being trained in that protocol. And I will talk some more to you all about that.
I look forward to that,
Yes, yes, ma'am.
sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
And I haven't shown you all the search feature, and I'm not going to delve into it, but that white box in the top right-hand corner is a search box. If you're looking for something, you could type in a keyword, and it will show you the minutes, the backup. It'll pull up anything that's in the system on that particular matter. But certainly, if you're looking for something and you can't find it or you don't want to use this feature, we're available. We have a robust records management division.
Erica, as you wrap up the tutorial, what would you say is the key takeaway for the council members so that when they come to the council meeting, and we do always try to print some of the addendums and the items that might go in the backup items, but we try to, not print everything.
Right.
So we could be printing a whole lot so that they have what they need, as you said, over the weekend leading up to a council meeting. I'm just trying to, for once and for all, make sure council members know how to get to the material. So the best thing is to go to the board agenda.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
ma'am. And so the best thing is when you get your email on Wednesday, go ahead and review the agenda and then use the web link. Make sure you're logged in. If you don't have your credentials, let me know, and I will get those to you. If we need to reset your password, we'll certainly do that. We'll have a one-on-one session, whatever's necessary to get you all acclimated. But make sure you're clicking on the board agenda, because there you're going to see all of your materials. And something may be a personnel matter, it may be contractual. We make items confidential for various reasons, but it's all covered under FOIA. So we're not always able to pinpoint what's confidential, so just make sure you're logged in, stay logged in. You can close the system out and still stay logged in or save your password, but just make sure you're reviewing your materials, and if you have any questions, we're always on standby to answer those questions.
Erica, the one thing I would ask as we look at a new PMO system is when you click on each of the attachments, and this is where I think I sometimes will miss things, I'll just see a bunch of PDFs downloading at the bottom, and then I can't remember what I have looked at and haven't. So I really think it's important when we move to a new system that it is able to either pull it up in a new tab or something where I can see exactly what the different attachments are. That's how I've missed HTAX recommendations, because I'm like, well, I think I downloaded everything, and it all just has numbers. It doesn't say the subject of the memo, for
Okay.
example.
And,
You get like
simple-
snapshot, snap, all the documents and
Say
names.
snapshot.
Snapshot, yeah. that's
We'll
hard to-
definitely keep that in mind as we're talking to vendors about their capabilities. Another option, when you talk about opening in a new window, we can look at some of your settings on your computer to tell it that when you open an attachment, to open it in a new window as well.
One more time,
Yes, sir.
one more time.
Yes, sir.
Where do I get it so it looks like that?
Uh,
When I download board agenda, it doesn't look like that.
But you're not-
can open
Yeah,
up
you
the
need to go to the web portal.
You don't
Let's
need to
go
download
online.
it. You need to go to the web
Yeah.
portal.
And I'll give you that. I'll get you set up. Well, I'll send you the link, and when you click that link, or if you're looking at an agenda, Mr. Duval,
Can you go back to today?
if you're looking at an email that I've sent you, just click the web link in the email, and it'll take you directly to the web portal.
Show me that email.
Okay, let's see here, here we are. So if you
See where it
receive
says
this
web
email,
board agenda, you're doing the left side.
doing the left
You keep
side.
downloading. You don't need to download. You need to go to the other side.
Okay.
so just click.
That way you get all the material. You're not waiting an hour for it to all load up.
It doesn't take long at my place, but it takes an hour to get it here.
Are there any other questions or concerns that I need to be aware of?
I don't have a question on Minute Track, but I do on the new dashboard. Did we ever figure, we are? Okay.
Anything else?
Anybody else have any other questions for Ms. Hammond?
All right, well, I appreciate your time and attention.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much,
And can you
Erica.
make sure Councilman Duvall and Reverend McDowell have a 1-800 number for you? They got questions.
We're gonna be like Sam Davis, we'll have to have a team come out.
And the computer break every day.
Just take it off mute.
Send the IT team. man.
All right, Ms. Benjamin?
Come on, Ms. Benjamin. Well, take you, you gotta walk up there anyway.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am here. I have the pleasure of talking about our CRM, our citizens' opportunity to be engaged with us as a city. And we do that through GovQA. Now, I'm just a spokesperson because I'm trying to champion some changes to this process and kind of in there involved, but I do have my technical people here with me. I have Ms. Carmen Fleming, who is in the PMO office with Missy Kaufman, who is the technical guru to help me, along with,
Stand up, Carmen.
stand up, Ms. Carmen. Along with Ms. Danita right beside her, and Danita is in customer care. And so customer care is one of the key stakeholders of GovQA and really help make sure the system works. And so they're gonna chime in as they see me up here struggling, if they see me struggling, as I talk through some of the detailed information about GovQA. So let's kind of get started here. So first of all, our city CRM background, this is kind of what we're gonna talk about, the background, discovery, planning, and update. Gonna do a brief little demo walkthrough for you, get some feedback, and then talk about some next steps. So how many of you have ever used GovQA? Maybe?
Oh, I have, as a citizen, prior to getting on city council.
Okay, as a citizen, good, great. About a speed bump.
Yeah.
All right, so that's exactly what we're talking about. So it is an online portal that allows citizens to submit and track concerns and place service requests to city staff for an enhanced customer experience. And it also enables our departments to work collaboratively together to resolve citizen issues. So that's really the foundation of GovQA. We contracted with them way back in 2010. We reached out to other vendors, did a request for proposals, kind of checked all the vendors that were out there, and contracted with them as a part of our support to our 311 and our FOIA initiatives. So moving forward, in 2018, we did some enhancements to the portal to expand some of the customer service options, including the mobile app. In that process, we did demos and had bids, like I said, for some other vendors. As the mayor talks about a lot, See Click Fix, we reached out to them at that time. Not Clickbait. That's actually a really good movie.
It is.
But not this. City Sourced, and there were some other vendors that we talked to. The decision was made to go with GovQA because it checked a lot of the boxes. It aligned with some of the requirements, some of the existing technology we had. The timeline and the pricing kind of fit within the scope of what we were trying to do. So we had our first project kick off 2018 in November, October, November, around about those parts. So fast forward to now, to last year we started. The mayor and other members of council really want to make sure we're really reaching our citizens and really giving them an opportunity to engage with us. And so we dusted off our GovQA and started a process of reevaluating it, figuring out what was working well, what wasn't, and what other opportunities we may have to maybe even go in a different direction, possibly, if it wasn't meeting our needs. And so we've done a lot of sessions with internal stakeholders, customer care, the PMO office, the IT department, a lot of users internally to try to figure out, is it working for us? Is it not working for us? What do we need to do to update, refresh, and revamp for better functionality and better service to our citizens? So just to give you some general information, in your little handouts that you have, you'll see some of this information, just to give you a color for GovQA and who uses it. So over 20,000 customers have utilized GovQA since its launching, and we've had 25,000 plus customer requests that have been submitted. Over 4,200 requests via web portal or the mobile app since 2018. And so we're just giving you a color for what those things look like. So if you look in that little box below, you'll see the departments where those requests have been made for water maintenance, customer care, street division, public works, solid waste, sanitation, and code enforcement. So Dr. Bustle's speed bump is underneath one of those categories. Those are the categories that we see the most requests for services or the most complaints or issues involving those departments. Those are our major ones. So they're big stakeholders in using some type of CRM system.
It's like less than 25 a day.
Yes, that's right. So,
Compared to the people who call on the phone.
30,000 a month.
and we're gonna talk a little bit about that. So, and you'll see the chart kind of gives you a graph of kind of You know, at our peak, we were up around 1,000 in between mobile apps and web-based requests. And then you'll also see that the staff can also submit requests on behalf of customers. So that's where, Mayor, we'd like to utilize that a little bit better, whereas things come into your office or Ms. Wilson's office, having a better connectivity to the system so that that information gets in there and the requests get processed within the system to make it kind of more seamless. So that's just some data, just to give you something to think about. So because yes, sir.
What's the, how do you get this data as opposed to persons calling us about significant matters, whatever department it's related to? Is that included in the current data?
So it is included in the current data if there was either they submitted it themselves as a citizen, or if someone in customer care took that complaint from you and put it into the system. Are you tracking with me? Yeah. And we'll show you that in a second, so it'll be a little bit clearer for you. So, like I said, our current status is really looking at what we have. We really wanted to do a good evaluation of what we currently have before we just scrapped it and went to something else. We've spent a lot of time and energy getting the system set up, getting it established, getting some workflows in there. And so we wanted to make sure we utilized a tool we already had to see if it's going to meet our needs or not before we totally went in a different direction. So we've done some requirements gathering. We've had some vendor demonstrations from some other vendors, SeeClickFix. We reached back out to them. IndyGov is also one that we've reached back out to see whether or not we wanted to look at those products. And we kind of did a comparison. And of course, nothing's perfect. SeeClickFix may have had a better app functionality as opposed to what we currently have, but then some of the integration with CityWorks wasn't quite there. IndyGov, no integration with CityWorks. So to figure out which option or which platform was going to be best for us.
Which one of those also allows us, because one of the things that we had hoped for as part of this process is as we get constituent emails and we do how it all tracks so that we know, because right now for the majority of us, we get something, we pass it on, we don't know that it's completed.
That's the question I'm asking.
You know, unless somebody calls us back and say, hey, that hole's still there, 2 months later, because the system doesn't allow us all to track. So how we track that, I think, is what I'm hoping that this will allow us to do, so that no matter what the issue is, we ought to be able to pull it off. So if I'm in my office, I can pull it up. But if I'm in customer service, I ought to be able to see the same thing and go, hey, that's been addressed. The folks have been out there, they've marked it, in 2 weeks it's going to get done. Because that's the frustrating stuff for our constituents, is nobody can tell them where the process is. And so if there's a way that this integrates so that no matter where you are, if you're on a city computer, you ought to be able to pull up and be able to tell them if it's done by work order or if it's code enforcement order. I don't know how you want to structure it, but I think that's what we want to make sure is part of that, not just navigating our system, but how we deliver that information back to our constituents.
And Pam, I just had a quick question. Can you remind us what CityWorks is versus GovQA?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
So GovQA is this front-facing portal, and it's the platform where the customer can make a request for service or enter a complaint. CityWorks is actually the workflow system that's internal that a lot of our big departments use. Columbia Water uses it, Customer Care uses it, Public Works uses it, and it is where you get a work order assigned to a task, and then there's information that's put into that system in order to track what the progress is on that particular work request. So that's really what you all want to see. You
Yeah.
want to see, hey, I called in about the speed bump. I called in on this date, March 14th, 2023, and I want to know what's going on with it. So City Works is where the individuals that go out to repair something, it's what they pull up, it's what they see, and they enter their notes as to what is going on with that particular problem or issue.
So is there a constituent relations component to City Works the same way, like, what was the company Intergov? Where, is there something that we can see on our end to also see things over time? Is it that we just need access to City Works, or is there like a link we can send to when someone reaches out about a code enforcement issue for them to fill it out and then we can track it? Like, I'm just trying to figure out in my head how I would know without following up.
And that's why GovQA, they're making the recommendation today to
Okay.
use GovQA because it will allow for that functionality that
That's
you're
okay.
describing, Dr. Bustles. Some of the other platforms wouldn't integrate with our City Works.
IndyGov didn't integrate with City Works.
So-
And being able to have it alert us, so if I send something to say to Clint's office, he passes it on to Frank or somebody down the line, there's a way that we know that it's gotten to the individual, that it's being done and in the process. That's why I was kind of leaning towards, where is there a way for it, once it's inputted, that no matter where you are, you could access it.
Right, and so some of that, honestly, and we've been talking through that as work groups, some of that is gonna be how we actually
Input it.
function, right, how we input it as staff and what we do to enable you to see some of that stuff. Let me show you, Erica, can you take us?
Pam,
Yes,
can I
sir.
just- I think it's very important for us to know that and I've called in several times, and every request, of course, has been either handled or taken care of, whether it's a code enforcement issue or a water issue or any other issues, it's been taken care of. I guess my interest is whether or not that's in the numbers that are already there. What I heard the mayor say just a few minutes ago, making sure that when we call in an issue, it's adequately tracked. If there's an issue, say, in either one of the districts, and that issue is so overwhelming, we get that done, there ought to be something that says to us through the data that it's been identified and it's been taken care of.
Yes, sir.
Now, is that a part of that protocol that we're going to be looking at?
So, yes, sir, we're working on, we're working
If
through
not,
the
we'll continue to
enhancements.
call.
Right, exactly. So one of the things I wanted to show you real quick was, this is what it looks like on the web page, and you can get to it in a number of different ways. Yes, ma'am.
Well, that's what I was gonna say too. I haven't found a clear way to get to this. Like, is there a link on our website where you can just say?
Yes, ma'am. So you can get to it several different ways. We have talked about its visibility and how it's easy, and how we probably needed to put it somewhere on a banner or a link that would be just in your face front page. Now you kind of got to go through another department. Like if you go to, Erica, go to Columbia Water. If you go to Columbia Water, yep. Scroll down, and it's right, report a concern. So you click that, report a concern, it takes you right to GovQA. But we have talked about, where.
Website Track My Columbia. So with the constituent calls, it said, well, have you gone to Track My Columbia and typed in the work orders to see where it is in process?
So let me show you. So with this is the front page of the GovQA site. And we've been talking about, and I'll talk a little bit about this later, pictures and the way it looks and all that. But this is what it looks like right now. So of course, we're on the home page. So you can see those two tabs. One is submit a FOIA request. So if you want to do a FOIA request about anything, you want to get this day's meetings notes, minutes, you can do that. Or you can also look at the frequently asked questions, and there are a ton of frequently asked questions that you can ask about anything. You can search for a particular topic, or you can just look at the frequently asked questions, and you can put them in categories. There are lots of them out there about just basic city functions. Those are all there. So in order to really submit a request, you can click on where it says log in or register your account. Or, I'm sorry, report a problem. You gotta log in, you gotta register. You have to set it up in order for us to be able to, for you to get those email responses when something has been done with this. So Erica's typing in her email address and her password to log in. So,
Password for the CRM,
yeah.
she develops her own password.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
you create
would-
your own account.
You create your own account, and you would put in your email address, and you would create your own password.
Now, Pam, I use this, is this new as opposed to what I've got now online? I'm looking at what I use online.
No, sir, it should be the same.
That same, it doesn't
What we're
look-
trying to
It
do
looks
is
a little bit
enhance it.
different on the different devices. On your phone, it looks a little bit different than it does on this web portal. If you're using an iPad, it just looks a little bit different because the landscape is different size. So,
Same thing.
right. Yeah, he's looking at the app. So the
looking
app,
at the
look,
app.
it looks a little different.
It is. a little
Yeah,
different.
it's configured a little bit differently.
I haven't used it.
So if you wanted to report a problem, you would click on report a problem. And then you would find what category you're looking for, whether it's animal services, solid waste. For example, if you wanted to say your roll cart got stolen, right? And you want your roll cart to be, you want a new roll cart. Right, so you would go to that solid waste, you would type in your address. City, state, all that good stuff. And then you'd say what the incident or information requesting. And you could say, my roll cart's missing.
Exactly.
And then you could, if you had a picture of an empty space, which your roll cart was, you could take a picture and you could select a file and upload that picture. And it would send that picture, for example, if you wanted to take a picture of a pothole or you wanted to take a picture of a water leak. You could take a picture, and Erica's doing it now. Can you find a picture, Erica?
I think the big piece is how we track how we're
Right,
getting.
and we're gonna show you that in a second.
Because all people want to know is, well, am I 399A or am I 4010? Where am I on
Right.
the list?
Use your roll card.
So once you do that and you submit it,
Within the
you're gonna get an email that says your reference number, you've submitted a request.
Is that out of CityWorks or is that out of CRM?
So this part is out of CRM.
So
Right.
this is how do you connect this and the city work so that, let's say customer care gets a phone call, hey, I put in a work order on November 11th, here's my number, I haven't seen anything. What happens is our customer service folks don't have the access to that, nor do we. So people call and say, I've been calling, nobody can give me an answer, they get frustrated. So how do we integrate those pieces so that when somebody gives you their number, if they call you, me, Miss Wilson, or customer care, you can pull up and say, hey, you know what, your street needed a new valve, we're out of those valves, we've ordered that valve, it's, hey, I'd rather tell the truth than not, and then go in there and, the markings are coming and in, 3 weeks they should be there. I think that's what we're trying to get to is how do we merge those so that we can give those constituents, because I think that's the frustrating part. And I feel it gets frustrated for our customer service person, and it gets frustrated for the constituent, because they're both trying to just get an answer and understand that, and nobody can talk to each other.
Erica, go back to it.
I see one
Well,
of the things right there, because
all of
that-
the
that's
information
number they're
is
getting.
in the,
I've got this work order.
is in City
This
Works.
is
So
CRM.
one of the things I wanted to show you with this, Erica, go back to Find My Information.
Probably, and then that
Or
creates a
your
whole nother
account.
level of confusion.
Go back to your account. I can't see. So if you've submitted something, you can look. It says View My Issues. So you click on that. And Erica, I don't know if you got anything in there. But that
She just goes to the
that
source.
she submitted would show up as one of her issues. And you see where it says completed or in progress? You will see, or any details that are in there. So the integration to the City Works is gonna show you where, anything that's been put in about that particular item is gonna show up in City Works, and then it's gonna feed to this
So
portal.
that's what's gonna happen.
It'll be integrated.
So once that gets integrated, then what we're really asking for, we'll have at our fingertips, and the constituent will too.
So they'll be able to see the status of
So
that
we-
roll card being gone. Now what also happens
So
though,
will you be able, so we have one master login, will we have access to all of that, so that if somebody calls me, I can just get on my computer, go in there and punch in that work order and see where it is, because I can say, hey, I see it on my screen, you should see it on your screen, this is where it is. Are we gonna have that capability, or can we get that capability?
so that's.
That would cut
the
down on a lot of
address,
phone calls.
'cause you may not have a work order, or the address, or whatever name.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You may have a
Property
CRM
address.
work order, but not a City Works work order.
well, that's what they're gonna
Once it's
integrate.
integrated. I don't, do you want Carmen or Sylvia, or not to get into the, Clint?
Because Clint's Mr. City Works person.
We live in City Works a lot, thank you, Pam. These are great questions. I think
It's in there, I don't bring
a
it in here.
service request usually generates a work order. It's triaged, and if there's work that needs to be done, then it generates a work order in City Works. We use City Works to track our progress, and also for cost and time accounting as well, so we can look at how much that particular thing, repair, cost us. You may have 5 calls, or you won't have 5 on the My Columbia SC app right now, because 25 people are using it a month, right? But you might have 5 calls about the same pothole. So you'll have 5 service requests that may generate 1 work order. So customer care, if they know the reference number, they can see the systems and tie it together, but sometimes it's like piecing together a puzzle. That next step of integration with CityWorks, that's the gold standard. Once we integrate CityWorks with that platform, then that frees you up to potentially be able to do outbound notifications, automated notifications to the customer that entered the online service request or have that placed in. So
The fact
gives
that
you a
we
lot
could
of
give people
flexibility.
tracking that they know, hey, in the next 7 days, pup's coming out. That's step 1. Step 2, it would cut down on 50% of the calls that we get of frustration. It's the communication piece. That's what we really want, is this integration, so that we can share where we are and what we're doing. People are okay if it takes 3 months to get something fixed, if they know it's happening. It's that information piece, and it may work internally, but we need to be able that internally, a broad brush, because Ms. Harris gets calls, we get calls, your customer service care calls, everybody's getting calls. So by integrating that and having that as a single point that you can grab, it changes the ballgame.
It will, and having a service level expectation. We've talked about, Ms. Wilson's talked about this with me for 2 years probably. Getting the service level expectation for, if it's a service line leak, we expect it will take X amount of time. If it's a main line leak, it will, and that's sometimes fluid, depends on the volume of work and hard freezes and that sort of thing. But capturing the work that's being done, which we're doing now, everything we do is entered in CityWorks and any of our crews, and that's really, really important. And this I think is the next step in that evolution.
Well, I think for water, for an example, how many times have we seen groundwater going up and it's not a water leak and people keep calling saying that water leak, it's not water leak, it's a ground leak. You know, it's groundwater, it's not us. And, that would solve a lot of that angst and phone
Sign
calls.
that in the hole.
No, you can't
This
do
is
that.
a groundwater leak. Clint,
Yes, sir.
and on your monthly report, which I love to read, and it's a very outstanding report, you list between 25 and 30 touch points a month.
1,000, yes, sir.
A customer.
Yes, sir.
1,000. How are they handled? Do they make up a work order in CityWorks or in something like this?
So a lot of times we'll take the customer's address, and that's tied to maybe their water account, and so a service request would maybe generated in the Banner billing system. That's a way we generate a lot of service requests. The My Columbia SC system can generate a service request also. But again, you may have 5 service requests for the same problem. CityWorks is not about an address, it's about an asset. So it's a pipe or a valve, that sort of thing. And so we can query that particular asset down the line to see how many failures we've had of that asset. That informs us of it's time to, based on age, material, the touch points, it's time to replace that asset. So that ties into our asset management system that we're developing as well. So again, you may have 5 to 10 service requests that generate one work order in CityWorks, but if these systems are integrated, then you can get that pushed back out and you can query either one, and it ties together. Tying those two together is very important.
Most of the time when we got constituent service requests, we send it in, we're gonna wanna know when it hits the CityWorks line.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Not this.
Well, the integration is it's gonna be integrated together, so it's gonna hit together. And that's what, Carmen just reached out to the vendor. So in the next probably 3 weeks or so, Carmen, we should have that integration with, CityWorks, because that's been a part of the process. One thing to note as well is that some yes, sir?
May I just?
Yes.
I think it's critically important for those of us who utilize a telephone call as opposed to the method here. It's been extremely helpful, no question about that, especially when we talk about water issues. Been extremely helpful in getting rid of some of those issues. The thing that I'm sort of horned in on right now is whether or not, when the work is done, usually I get a customary call, complimentary call, or whatever kind of call I get to say that the work has been completed. And of course, I'm having to call that person back to say that person was there, the work has been completed, and we're ready to go. Is there any way in this protocol, and I'm gonna harp on this, Pam, I think it's very necessary and needed that when the work is done, especially if it's being ushered in by one of us who calls that in, that the work is being done, it's gonna take 5 to 6 days for it to get completed. Just to let those persons know in the community that it's being done and that the issue has not gone unresolved.
Yes, sir. And that's part of the workflow that we've been talking about is a lot of times, like you said, some of these things are finished, right? But that customer doesn't get that follow-up call to say, hey, this is done. With the integration and the upgrading of the system, we can do more automated emails that get sent out to people or more automated notifications. Customer care will enter, if you call them to say there's a problem with something, they enter that into their system, so they are keeping track of it. And so a work order is created, all of that is happening. This will allow it to be a little bit more seamless so that things are flowing through. Now, there are some internal things we need to work on for sure about how we help you track some of that and how constituent services like Shanique helps you track some of that. So that's part of our discussion as well, is what can we do internally for those touch points and those customer enhancements that make everybody feel more comfortable that they're being heard, their issues being worked on, and giving them more current, up-to-date status checks on that problem. So, you know, it's not just a technology issue, it's a staff issue, it's a bigger workflow issue that we're, you know, kind of trying to engineer all those things together as we work through this whole process. Erica, you want to get me back to now some of the departments, like I was going to say, some of the departments like solid waste, every department has a person that is assigned to really looking at what's coming in through this site. And for example, I just talked to Samantha today and she said, yeah, what I usually do is I send them an email that says, hey, I understand that your roll card needs to be replaced. It will be replaced within 24 hours or the next business day. They have a schedule, and they get that email. So they know, hey, they got my request for my roll card, and I can expect my roll card at the next business day. And then the roll card's there, and the problem solved. So the departments have the ability to reach back out to the constituent or the citizen when they submit a request or a complaint through this system already. So that's one of the things we've been working on, is tightening up that list, making sure that list is accurate, making sure the right people are looking at the system and they're seeing those requests come in, and that there's a good response to those requests being submitted. Because that could be happening right now. We don't need that integration for that to happen. Those people assigned in those different departments, they already have access to the system and can respond. So we're going back to say, hey, do we have the right person? And do you all have departmental protocols that say you got to respond to somebody within 24 hours? Or you need to follow back up.
Access the
Right.
information.
Do you know how to access the information? Can you see City Works and see the workflow and be able to give anybody any specific information about their request or complaint? So all of that engineering, all that workflow, and all that customer service and touch points, we're working through all of that as we talk about this integration.
As it gets integrated, though, can it get up where it sends an automatic email to that person?
That's
You
the
know, hey,
goal.
get this week, this is what's happening. You know, I got a call from somebody who's been just very adamant in this issue, and they said, hey, my problem's not solved, but they were here and they've started, and the tone just changed.
Right. People just want information. And so that's what we're working through, is there are opportunities to send out those emails to let them know statuses. In addition, we've even talked about, you know, picking up the phone, calling people. Are there some opportunity to do that depending on how long that work request has been out there? You know, have a schedule where if it's 60 days or 30 days or what have you, what makes sense? I mean, you know, we still got to get the work done, and we want to, you know, be realistic, but we're talking about that. What are those touch points? When do they happen? How often do they happen? What can we do to improve that customer experience? Did you have a question?
Yeah, is there anywhere now you can go and enter a work order to check status?
I don't know that we have that capability right now. Someone who is in City Works right now could probably do it, but I don't know that we could
So,
see that right now.
So, I mean, do some software, I mean, I've seen it before in other cities where you can go and, hey, I'm gonna check my status of this work order, and eventually we hope to get to where the citizen can say, all right, it's 7 days out. So what if you weren't the person that entered that, but there's some road work that's needed at an intersection that you see every day? Is there the capability of kind of putting a map, kind of like our GIS that, you know, you can go and you can zoom in to that intersection of Devine and Woodrow and check and see, yes, there's a work order there. Now, this isn't anybody that entered that work order that called, but just for a citizen to say, okay, it's been reported, click on it, and then see the detail that we're looking for.
Like pinpointed work orders?
Yeah. I mean, I've seen it out there, but I don't know if it's a DOT thing, a state DOT thing, or if it's more on the local level for a combination of everything public works, everything water, all in one house.
Yeah, I've seen that too. I don't know. I mean, I think that's something that we're working with the vendor, talking about the things that we'd like to see in the enhancements. So I
imagine
I
this,
don't
like,
know, but
for
I
that
know what
road-
you're saying. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so that pothole that is halfway done, imagine if there was a little utility flag out there and it said, this is work order number. Citizen could go up, look at the work order, and I'm like, okay, let me type it in. And it, go to this site, type in work order, and then it brings up the status. That'd be fantastic. And I guess I'm also concerned that you have to go in and physically start an account to enter an issue. That's kind of a big barrier for,
So you can enter it in anonymously, but the problem is we can't respond back to you if you enter it in anonymously, but it would be in the flow. And if it worked like you're saying, that person could see it
exactly.
and they wouldn't have had to create an account. They could just go in and anonymously.
So maybe there's a question in the process, do you want us to contact you, put the email address, instead of having the email be the trigger that puts you into the reporting process?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. You can do an anonymous submission. It just is difficult for us to get back to that person if they do anonymous. But you're right. It would notify. It would kick off a work order and then kick off
yeah.
the work being done. And
Yeah.
if you could zoom in on that map and see that little pin
Yeah.
mark, you would know that yes, that's being worked on, and you could track it and see the status of it.
And so if you're out walking your dog and you see,
Yeah.
oh, well, let me see if the sidewalk's been broken forever, there's a little flag there.
Yeah.
So I guess,
It could also then tell you if that's a DOT problem versus city problem.
cities reported it to DOT, so it's now on the regional DOT supervisor's to-do list.
Yeah, but Erica's going through where you could submit it anonymously. You just type in the address, and you would be able to do that.
In all caps.
So, but
exclamation.
we'll check on that and see if there's some
Yeah,
functionality for that, because that would be awesome if you could
Yeah.
just look at it on a map and see what the status is. But we are working on, like I said, all that connectivity. One of the things we're also working on is just how it looks and how
And a separate landing page, just, I mean, seriously, like,
yeah,
instead of going to Columbia, SC, whatever,
have
Come
its
up with
own
something
landing
easy.
page. We can
Something
definitely look at
real
that.
easy that we can just tell
Refer
folks.
people to.
Yeah. Email it to them, text it to
Fix My
them.
Columbia.
Okay, we'll
Do a hashtag all over everywhere.
okay, we'll throw that around. When they first pushed this out, it was kind of like a soft thing, and we didn't really do it, with the gusto that we can. So we have the opportunity. We know that Leisha's going to come up here and talk about some of some of her initiatives and some exciting things she's going to do from the public relations perspective. So we did talk about rebranding it so that it's the same look and feel with some of the things that she's doing. So we may be able to use some of her photos and some of her images and some of the ways she's going to word things in order to incorporate it into this, so it does look, all together. But we'll look at that, a landing page or something, real quick that people can go to.
So what's your take on timeline?
So like I said before, it's going to take us probably about 3 to 4 weeks to integrate with CityWorks. So that process will be happening really soon. We have a few images that we've looked at to try to, there's one at City Hall, and so try to refresh it a little bit. But we really are working on that integration and then our internal workflows to make sure we have the way that we can track what you all are asking for, and then we are tracking those touch points for the constituent to see it. So, I mean, I would imagine that you're gonna see some things happening in the next 2 months or so. I mean, that's
can
what we're
we-
really trying
Can we
to
have a
do it real
target
soon.
date of July 1 being completed, integrated?
Absolutely, we
I
can
think it'd
do
be a
that.
great way to start the new fiscal year with this service, the ease for people. And I think if they go to columbiasc.gov and they can just hit /repair request, that would solve, I mean, make
Or
it pretty
something
easy.
easy.
Yeah.
In the meantime, are they still able to use this?
Yes. This is still functional. They can still use it from the web portal. You can still use it from the app. it's still out there, it's still available, and we encourage people to use
And I
it.
think if once we get everything integrated to the level that we think it's headed and how the notices, I think that's where you push the PR side on it to push people there, because it's going to be a lot easier than being on hold and clogging up the call, especially if you're trying to follow up on something. You can just click and see it. That's going to make a lot of people happy.
Yeah, Carmen and I talked a bit today, and she kept saying self-service. And so, yeah, we definitely, and I know Danita probably feels the same way, and Tiffany Latimer, about doing as much
Yeah,
self-service as
Tiffany would like to
possible.
get less emails from me, I promise you.
Exactly. But, and then Erica and Shanique and myself, we're working on our internal forward with you all and Ms. Wilson to make sure that your high priority things are taken care of and that there's a better way for those things to be tracked. So I think July, we already talked about July 1 to head for some of these things to be completed. So that's a very reasonable time frame for us. Any other questions?
Got direction and a time frame, so let's make it happen.
All righty. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Pam. Thank you for the feedback, council. So a lot of exciting things happening that we are pushing towards July 1. As I mentioned, some of these items have budgetary implications as well. So our next two item is sort of what I've been tagging as a new era in our communications platforms, our communications and marketing and public relations. Council has definitely given us a lot of great feedback on communications in the city and your vision. And as part of that, I was talking to Leisha, our wonderful Director of Public Relations, Media and Marketing, about let's reintroduce our team. So many of them are helping our council members with the different things that they're doing, the different events, the different initiatives. And we all always hear about Miss Veronica, who is fabulous and is at the community meetings, and the council members really lean into her. But they also may not recognize or know by name all the time the other members of the team. Alicia has a phenomenal team. A lot of them have particular skills. Some have been with us longer than others. And so they've also taken on new roles and responsibilities. And so I really would like her to reintroduce them in some instances. And I'm going to hand off to her. And after we go through this, I also will hand off to Leisha and Shannon, our Director of Procurement and Contracts, to talk about the real meat of some of the vision that you all have talked about, our implementation of a communications and marketing services request for proposals. Leisha?
Okay, thank you, Ms. Wilson. Mayor and City Council, some of these faces you will recognize because you see them very often. Some of these faces you may not recognize because they work more behind the scenes, but they're all definitely working on your behalf and on behalf of our citizens. I will start on that end. And Kevin, if you could introduce yourself, give your title, and how long you've been with the city.
Kevin Crawford, Public Relations Manager. I've been with the city for 5 years.
Veronica Walker, Constituent Services Liaison, and I've been with the city 7.5 years.
Hi everyone, my name is Annika Chandler, and I am the Public Relations Specialist, and I've been here for 1.5 years.
How long? 2 months. She's in a honeymoon phase.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth East. I'm Public Relations Strategist. I've been here for about 7 months.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ryan Cohen. I'm the Communication Coordinator, and I've been here for about 8 months or so. I lost track of time.
Justin Stevens, I'm PR Manager. Been here, it'll be 9 years in November. But about 11 if you count internships.
Yes.
And say your other real role. That's right, Mayor.
Proud papa of a baby boy.
Yay. A big baby boy at that.
Yeah, he ain't starving.
He's not.
and not all of our team members could physically be with us because, again, they do work behind the scenes. This is Chaz Nevels. You can wave to him on the camera. He's actually live streaming our meeting right now, so he could not leave his post. And then also we have interns who are not here this afternoon. They don't work on Tuesday afternoons. This is Taylor Houston. Taylor's actually a graduate student at the University of South Carolina. She actually started with us in 2021 as a student undergrad, journalism student majoring in public relations. She decided to go from that into the School of Business at USC, Darla Moore School of Business, and she's now working on her MBA, but still working as an intern. We also have Allie Sear. She's also an intern with us. She's been with us since 2022. She's also a journalism student at USC, and they both work with us and support our team and actually work on various projects. And since we are always focused on recruitment and retention, Pam,
Just like you.
If you don't know who that is,
thank you, okay?
we gotta have a deeper conversation.
This is the baby boy of Justin Stevens, okay? And a future city employee, we've already decided it. And he's gonna major in journalism and work in PR. So we're already working on our next generation of PR staff members, but we want to make sure we let you know that we're looking towards the future. Okay? All right. Thank you so much. I want to get into more of what they actually do as primary duties as our team. As I mentioned, Chaz, who you don't see physically in here, he works on technical duties, including live streaming our meetings, city council, land use meetings, committee meetings. He has a backup who is Elizabeth, because with so many meetings going on, sometimes he's got to hit a press conference or do something else, and she would then actually live stream our meetings. Kevin Crawford on the end actually started in PR, left us for a little while, and went to Parks and Recreation as a Parks and Recreation PR manager. And when city leaders decided they wanted to streamline communications, he actually returned to us in the fall of last year. Yes, September. He came back to PR, so city PR. So he's actually handled several duties for Parks and Recreation. Your most recent MLK Day is something that he actually spearheaded because we didn't want to leave them in the lurch. He's currently working on projects such as the Community Development Week that's coming up in April, working closely with them for PR and promotions. And also, he worked on the code enforcement PR campaign that was very successful several months ago with Chief Holbrook's staff. And it was so well received by our citizens, we actually extended it for 2 months instead of a month, beyond Code Enforcement Month. And Ms. Veronica is actually still giving out our code enforcement information in the community. He developed some materials that have been very helpful. So that's some of the projects he's worked on that you may be familiar with. I don't think I have to say anything about Ms. Veronica, but I'll still say it for our audience watching, and they probably recognize her name and her as well. But she works with our constituents. She is a godsend. She does a very good job. Everyone knows her. She's connected with our community, our citizens, our neighborhood leaders, and she loves her job. Okay?
Obvious.
Absolutely loves her job, and she was made for that role to actually spread the word about the city to our citizens throughout the community. So you will see her everywhere. Neighborhood meetings, special events, parades, job fairs, etc. Anywhere she can tell people about the city, you will see Veronica, okay? And she even seeks out opportunities. Annika, next to her, is our smiling face. She's normally in the office working on various duties that are assigned because we do support almost 30 city departments. That's why some of these folks are more out in the field, but we also need folks here working to make sure our departments are getting what they need. And she has graphic design abilities. She also works on our special projects and events. She's a very good events planner, definitely. That's her thing. And she works throughout the city helping the departments who send in PR request forms for the various projects. Kiara is brand new. She's still smiling, so I think we're going to hang on to her. She's been here 2 months. She's the newest member of the team. I have her shadowing various staff members. She's working very closely with Ms. Veronica as well, helping with constituent services, helping to prep for a lot of these events, because a lot of times we have information bags and packets that need to go, be put together, spreading our wonderful information. So she's helping in various roles. She also monitors our daily media coverage. So those great media coverage reports that I'm sure you read every night that I send you, she's pulling media coverage from various outlets locally and trying to monitor what people are saying about the city from a media standpoint. Elizabeth, I mentioned, is a backup for tech, but primarily she's our web administrator, helping with website duties, monitoring our homepage, et cetera. That keeps her busy. She's also our link to media relations. When they want interviews from city staff, she helps prep the city staff, coordinates the interview, is normally there kind of hand-holding if they need it while they're being interviewed, so that's her background. Ryan, you actually see a lot because she's our lead photographer, and she's at most of the press conferences and special events. So when you hear the click, 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 you see Ryan. Ryan actually matriculated to us, thank you, Clint, from Columbia Water. She started out in Columbia Water, and again, we inherited her when we actually had the streamlined process for communications, and she came over to PR. And of course, Justin, who's been here the longest with us, he started out as an intern. I didn't want to let him go. He actually, to me, has kind of built City TV from the ground up, which is now very popular. And we've spread out into Roku, Amazon Fire TV for our streaming. Also, our YouTube channel is growing as well. So he's our tech guru, and he was recently promoted to a PR manager to utilize his skills to work on various projects. He's actually working with the Columbia Cleanup right now, with code enforcement, public works, and also community development. So that's coming up in April. And he's also working with HR for our upcoming career fair as far as marketing and PR. Okay? All right, anything else for this team?
Yay, team.
All right.
And I want the team to be standing here while I do one quick thing. This is off script. So our
Miss
director has been with us for 25 years and needs her gold.
I can't cry and do a presentation.
You're not gonna cry and all that, but I do think it's significant and always must be recognized. Longevity with the city, but also the ability as another long-standing city employee myself, the ability for us to also flex and know when we need to build up those around us and move even in greater directions. And so we're ready for that. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Lisa.
Ms. Wilson, okay. She knows to catch me off guard because I would have told her no. All right, thank you, team. And I'll let you go.
Great job, you guys. Thank you.
And as we segue, that way I can pull myself together, we will talk about our RFP and the process we're going through. We're actually working as a team. We've been meeting for a couple of weeks, few weeks. It includes our city manager, our assistant city manager, Jeff Palin, Ryan Coleman, our economic development director, and Shannon Luzeski. And I'm not sure if is her new role been announced to council?
I
to city council?
I know the city staff. So Shannon, most of you know that Sandra retired after, I don't know, 30 or so years in government, procurement. I forgot how many with the city, and 10 with our city. And Shannon, of course, has been right there as a right hand to Sandra for many years. So Jeff probably should be making the introduction because he oversees procurement, but we're so excited that Sandra had such a strong bench. And Shannon is our new director of procurement and contracts. Yay. Congratulations, Shannon.
All right. And Ms. Wilson, did you want to do any other kind of intro before I get started, or?
No, I think council is, because this was one of their directives that we move in the direction of also with all of the team we have that we just explained in their roles and responsibilities. We also know and recognize, as I was just saying, that the city is growing by leaps and bounds. This council has some significant items that they want to accomplish and a vision that wants to highlight the growth and development of our city in new and fresh ways. And so that's really the purpose and the intent, as we have heard it, behind putting out for a communications and marketing RFP to assist us in that regard. But we do want, before we put the solicitation out, and that's the purpose of today, is for Alicia and Shannon and Jeff and Ryan and I to get final feedback on this RFP and really explain the process we're going through as well as the timeline.
Okay, thank you. We'll start off discussing project need. And we initially started out focusing on communications and marketing services. As far as project need goes, one of the things that we took notes about when we last presented to council was our emphasis on social media and the need for social media growth, but also consistency. So within the RFP, these are some of the things that we're going to emphasize, and please give us your feedback. We also will talk about getting more of your feedback in a different way as well, but we want to make sure we're headed in the right direction. Social media emphasis, looking at strategies to increase public engagement and expansion of our audiences, basically increasing our number of followers. Also, as it relates to social media, consistency across the board as far as look and feel, graphic design, use of fonts, colors, etc. We also want to look at graphic design from an image enhancement standpoint, looking at guidelines for social media platforms and consistency also in our publications. And that will be across the board for even all city departments, since all departments look at developing brochures, flyers, and other educational materials. So that from department to department, everything doesn't look different. At least when you receive something, you know it's from the City of Columbia. It'll have a consistent look from area to area. We also looked at including national media coverage development. This is inclusive, but it's not limited to newspapers, online publications, digital media, television, broadcast, radio, etc. Looking at increasing our national media coverage about some of the city's larger major initiatives. Included, yes, sir.
How about for the local media? One of our struggles, and I think we discussed this before, is that, you know, local media, both print and television, is not covering all the things that are going on at the city. How are we gonna? We need to develop that. I don't know if it's a relationship approach that gets them more on board. I mean, we've had very little coverage for a lot of stuff that's going on in this city for a couple years now, and clearly we've got to figure out, I don't know if it's sitting down with the management at these stations, the newspapers. I mean, I've reached out to the editors and got zero response from them. There's no local presence, and, you know, look, our constituents need to know what's happening in the city. And there's so much information, and there's only so much reach we can do with the other pieces. How do we deal with that piece, and can we include that?
And we could definitely add that.
And then the one thing I see missing in the project need, which would align some of the economic development and PR related functions, is kind of a brand strategy and brand refresh that would be consistent in terms of some of the things you're talking about for publications, but also even, for example, the My Columbia SC app, the font and look and feel looking so different than other things that we have around the city. And so I think that's the real missing piece, is that this person or organization would come in and really help make all of that consistent and fall under one umbrella brand.
Okay.
And we can tag that on with, you know, you can't spell Scout without My Columbia SC in it, right?
Yeah. So one of the things I think over the years that we've heard different takes on is this use of, you know, brand and a brand of the city, branding. Is that the direction y'all are wanting to go? Because I've heard different things about the terminology, the brand. is it the image enhancement? I definitely am following with what Dr. Bustles is saying about the consistency and utilizing the same look and feel. I'm just, for the purposes of the document and the solicitation and us communicating to these respondents, how do you want us to communicate that?
So when I say brand in like the marketing communications world, I think about kind of like going back to the whole telling our story. So when we think about Experience SC has a specific brand, look and feel in terms of their, you know, their logo, which obviously we already have a logo, but the font that they use, the brand guidelines for what every department within Experience SC has to use to push out anything related to that. I think just refining, you know, even if it's based off of our logo, just kind of the qualifications of what is consistent with our brand. And you can use whatever word makes sense in the city world, but like, I'm thinking in terms of just being consistent in our look and feel, because that will then directly influence the type of collateral that's developed about the city for economic development.
Well, and to add to that too, I think I don't want to dictate how they do it because they may have different suggestions, but maybe get some input on how we can better develop our brand.
Well, and I think part of that is once we've enhanced and I think it's not change. We're not looking for a new logo or tagline. It's trying to pull everything consistent because we still have street signs out there that say it's a capital place to be. You know, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I think we're trying to get is so that everything that we send out, people know and identify this is Columbia, South Carolina, the capital city of South Carolina. They know who it is, and it's not so different across the thing. It's not so much changing the brand, it's more being consistent.
Yeah, we say like refresh.
Refresh.
Like just reviewing what we have and making sure that it's consistent. We don't need a new logo or colors or anything, but what can we do in terms of like what Councilman Herbert said, like improving upon what we already have and making sure that everything is consistent across all communications, not just social media.
Okay.
So basically, a style guide that is adhered to across the board.
That may be one way to implement, but I'd love to hear their actual ideas in terms of making our and I'm going to keep using brand like exciting so that then it can help tell the story for why you should come and open a business here.
And I think
some of it is I mean, I got 3 different pieces here that we're working on,
And they all
some
look
of us are using the skyline, some are using the flag, some are using, you know, how do we create so there's consistent and you have the style guide, whatever you want to have, that you have all these different pieces so that when we're selling it, people know it's us.
Right. And so when yes, I agree with everything you just said. I think when I was using the terminology image enhancement, which is on number 2, that is what I was really meaning, what you're saying. So that's why I'm asking, because I'm very literal and I want to be very clear as we go down this path that we're doing and trying to incorporate what you all are looking for.
So I think I would suggest that we keep graphic design and, you know, as its own bullet, but then include, you know, brand strategy, brand guidelines, brand refresh, you know, those are the words I typically hear when I go through an RFP process for communications or PR. There might be a better word to kind of pinpoint exactly what we're looking for, but I do think it's its own sub-bullet.
May I ask?
Go ahead, Reverend.
Yeah. One of the things that is sort of interesting, a year ago, this same subject came up, and the subject came up under the line of telling your story. You remember? It's not a new story out there. It's a better articulation of that story. The story doesn't change. It changes a little bit. Our emphasis ought to be, Ms. Utze, how do we take a story that is already there, continuing to unfold itself? How do we take that story, whether it's in council, whether we come out of council into a community meeting, and community meetings become become agents of change and agents of telling their story. I think a rebranding of what we got, I don't know if that's it. I think that our story is already there. We got an energetic council. We got an energized city. We got a city that is ready for change. How do we articulate that story? And the articulation of that story is not to continue to pile in on something that's already there. Now, let me put this in, maybe you all understand this theologically and spiritually. It's not, I will. We're not talking about something new. We're talking about a better living of what we already got. And that we don't. We try to make something new that's already there. Let's live out what we say is our vision, our priorities. Let's live those things out. Let's stop tacking on things. Let's live out what we got in a better and more profound way.
Well, you went theological, I'll go hip hop. Is it LL Cool J, Jeff? Don't call it a comeback. We've been here for years.
There you go.
So.
Now, I don't know. I know who LL Cool J is.
You shouldn't.
And I don't. But I
Barry White.
But I do know what the Creator says, and that's significant. We're living out.
Amen, brother, amen.
Thank you, man. May I be excused for just
Mr. Duvall, then Mr. Brennan.
I'm no media expert. To me, I'm not sure if one company can do these things. We might need to be looking at different companies to do parts of that. The graphic design might be done by one group and the social media might be handled by another.
I've seen it. So, for example, Adventure, they just went through a brand refresh, keeping their logo, but they wanted a completely different look and feel. And so they had a company come in and do like a brand strategy that would then be incorporated into a guide for all the staff. Gave us examples of the colors, look and feel in terms of how the new signs would look, how documents would look, and then what social media would then look like in terms of the brand guidelines of the colors that you use when you're making, like, oh, the city is closed today and things. These are typically pretty expected functions of large marketing and PR companies.
Would the same group be able to take that sort of study and implement it with an aggressive social media campaign?
Yes, absolutely. And, some of it would also be then that the city and our existing team here would adopt some of those pieces as well, right? We have, 7 or 8 people that also work internally to the city, and there would be certain functions that they would take on after this external organization presented, and we confirmed and decided what the final direction in terms of look and feel of the city is.
And Dr. Bustles, sir, go right ahead and then I'll make a point.
No, please answer.
Well, Dr. Bustles, that's one of the discussions we've been having within our team, and I know Ms. Wilson was going to address that a little later about actual execution. Like, are we looking at consultant services to come in and say, okay, here's the guidelines, here's a plan, and then that be implemented by staff? Or were we looking at a firm to actual handle, I guess, some hands-on services, which is a totally different animal, which Shannon will get into. So that helps provide some clarity. Okay. And sir.
All right, so as we get on to the 5 o'clock hour, real quick. So we are committed, we keep saying keeping our logo. We have no plans to change from the City of Columbia. We are Columbia major logo, right? Correct?
Correct.
All right. Is this?
Oh, I'm not interested in changing.
Yeah, no. Wanted to make sure, because everything plays off of that. We are Columbia, I get it. So I guess you're going to talk about the proposal process. Now, are we going the RFI option or
I will
RFP
defer to
option?
Shannon on
If
that.
we could get a quick summary on
And I
that.
can come back
And
up. and then-
as Shannon's coming up, the last piece of the components is the economic development piece, the pitch book itself, and the slide deck creation. We had talked in the Economic Development and Infrastructure Committee, and the recommendation was that Ryan proceed with using Darla Moore School students to develop content. I do think it's really important that all of this is streamlined and consistent as you're talking about. So Shannon will talk in a minute about the timeline, Mr. Brennan, and part of this process will result in an addendum that we give to these respondents, because simultaneously that content piece with the Darla Moore School for the Economic Development pitch book and slide deck is underway.
Perfect.
And so we're going to grab that content and share it as an addendum in this process so that they can use that. And that will be one of the first items out the gate that if it is the one company, Mr. Duvall, that they would produce is the Economic Development pitch book, which should have that look, feel, brand, refresh that is consistent with everything else we'll be producing as a result of this process.
And just before we leave, before we get to Ms. Shannon, as far as the primary components with the social media, I do want to make sure that we're asking for the best strategy with respect to the individual departments and targeting. Because I do think that I don't want us to do all of this work and have these great pictures and still have no one who really pays attention to it, because it gets lost in all of the wide subject matter that we're trying to cover. So I would want to hear strategies, what they think is good for each department that needs to have or thinks that they need to have a social media presence.
Councilwoman Herbert, that's part of the public engagement, because we have lots of followers, but I guess when you compare followers to engagement, how do we increase engagement across the board, but then specifically for certain areas and departments? OBO, economic development, parks and recreation, employment, it's like, how do we target certain areas?
Separate them back out. That's what it is.
Well, I
But
mean,
we need somebody to officially recommend that.
And I
Yeah.
think part of that addendum, you need to say, look, if you've got to put some dollars behind creating more followers and getting, because that's part of what everybody does today through, and it's not expensive to do it, but, building up that base so that we're growing, we need to consider that. That needs to be part of it, because for us to see success, we need more views. We need that content being shared more and more platforms. And I hate to say it, but that's part of what you're doing is you're mining more followers and so forth. So you want to have that in there.
So part of the discussion on cost, and as these proposals come back, we're already internally kind of estimating on the high end. But I do think some of those additional features, some of the discussions about how hands-on they continue to be with us and our team, will obviously drive costs. So Shannon will talk about the scalable nature of the RFP process. So we really just want to get back everything we can get back, put it all out there, and then we'll make determinations. I will tell you, because this is one of the items on your agenda today that has budgetary implications, that we have talked, and Jeff and I will make recommendations about utilizing accommodations tax, state tourism development dollars. The same money that goes already to market the region, we ought to be keeping some of those funds, because this is the effort that you all want to put behind it, and we've got to pay for it. So we ought to use, it's eligible, the parts that are eligible for that will probably be a recommendation in this budget, that we use those funds accordingly.
And I think when we get to where we have our story, branding, our component, we need to share it with our partners so that there's a consistent message. One of the conversations I've had with both the university, with the airport and other entities is there's 7 different messages going out with Columbia. That does not help us recruit and bring here because people can't figure out who we are. We need to be the driver and they need to build up with us. You know, the university's going to do, but there's a lot of things that they do that they market Columbia. It needs to be consistent with us. Just like, you know, the airport, it is CAE. So, you know, we need to work together through some of that and share that information.
Yes, sir. Shannon?
And before, thank you so much for the feedback, it's vital, and we don't want to miss an important part, so Shannon will also cover a great idea she had about actually making sure that we capture what you said today.
Yes.
Okay, so before we actually head over into the procurement world, I think this is probably a great time to talk about your vision. So looking at the project need that's all bulleted out for you, and of course we can certainly add to that as we need. I've been writing notes as you all have been talking because I definitely want to capture anything that is important to you. So when we look at a need like this is communications and marketing, so we're stepping back and how can we creatively give this kind of information out to the community at large? And what better way to do that but then to give it some kind of special attention? And I think the best way to do that might be to record some interviews or have some videos where some of you or all of you could participate. It wouldn't be very long, but it would capture the things that are most important to you. And what better way to relay that to the public for them to hear it firsthand from you? So I would envision those interviews being no more than 3 minutes in total length. We could use that information to supplement our solicitation materials, and we definitely would want to share it at the pre-proposal meeting. So, ideas?
Some videos for us. And it's really just capturing the things that you're telling us. We want the respondents to the RFP to hear it firsthand, what you're looking for, so that they can.
Interactive RFP, basically.
So we're talking about our vision for the city or our vision for communications and marketing
For the
services?
communications and marketing services.
If you could just really share what you shared today.
Yeah.
Y'all can't just pull the video. Yeah.
If you prefer that, we can, but I do think that it would.
Someone will do a video.
It doesn't have to be everyone, just those of you who would like to participate. Okay. And then Ryan will also talk about, from the Economic and Infrastructure Committee, there was at one point a suggestion that those members participate in hearing the content, the pitches that the students are doing on the ED side as far as content, and sort of judging and help give feedback on that. Again, it's totally whatever you all want to do, but that was something that was suggested previously as well. Ryan can. Okay. All right, great. So Shannon, what about procurement? I know Mr. Brennan's got a hard stop at 5.
Okay. So procurement, this is a perfect setup for a request for proposals. We know generally what we're looking for, but we don't have all we have the background, but we don't necessarily know what the end result will ultimately look like. And we need the experts' help. And this is a perfect classic example of going with the RFP procurement method. We can look at evaluation factors, we can look at things that are important to you, and we can outline all of that out. As far as writing the scope of work, we want to make sure, again, still crafting based off of what we're hearing from you all today, but realizing that the sky's the limit on this, and are we looking at just garnering advice from a consultant, or are we looking at someone coming in alongside us and helping us implement more of a hands-on approach? So not knowing that completely at this point, I think it's prudent to go ahead and put both into our RFP and let that consultant come back to us and say, this is what I would do in this situation, and this is what I would do in the other. And then we'll have both.
That's a good one.
As far as the contract is concerned, I know that we will probably be rolling out different parts of it on different timetables. So Ryan's going to talk about the economic development piece of this, and that will probably be the first thing out the gate as far as what we award. But and then that will give that firm to some time to craft the public relations piece of that, working with Leisha firsthand and giving us some good insight into the first 3 bullet points. And then we'll award that out as that happens.
Why don't you skip to the timeline just so Mr. Flynn
Sure.
can see that before he leaves, and then Ryan can come up and talk quickly about this.
Okay.
Oh,
So-
and before you do that, could you just mention, I may have missed this, the goal is that it's going to be a hybrid approach of both help with implementation and consultation, correct? Okay.
We will ask for proposals both ways. Yeah. As far as the timeline's concerned, we're ready to roll out the gate as soon as March 27th. That is a little bit contingent upon if we are getting recordings from you all. We would like to have that information no later than the 20th. And you all would get to work firsthand with Leisha's staff to record those videos. And then that way we can incorporate it.
Now and Monday for you who are calendar challenged.
Yeah.
Is it on meeting track?
No, it's not on me. But if you want to sit it on your living room and record it and send it, you can do that as well.
That's true. So shortly after that, we will be having a pre-proposal meeting where the public comes in and those who are interested in helping us out as a respondent can ask any question that they have. We'll go through the solicitation fully, answer any of their questions. I understand the content that is coming from USC School of Business, that will be provided in late April. So we would want to make sure that information is handed over as well, as quickly as we can. So we're looking at maybe April 26th, that would be provided by an addendum. And then responses would be due pretty close after that, the first part of May. As far as getting the information prepared and ready for you all to review on June the 20th, that gives us some time to go through evaluations, interviews, crafting a contract, all of that, and preparing it for you all slated for council agenda. And we're looking at a notice to proceed for the contract in the first part of July.
You mentioned that you wanted to do the economic development portion first. How are you going, I can see where you can get the content done first, but we're not gonna know what the look and feel looks like
Correct.
until you get downstream a few months.
That's my concern too, to jump to economic development, but then not have an overarching look and feel that's consistent seems backwards.
No, they're going to be working on both simultaneously. We're just saying as part of the award, the understanding would have to be because he's needing it, although we're still hiring people for that office, but this is something that's been discussed for quite a while about the need for that pitch book. So that's just one of the elements that the company will need to know going in, that they're going to have to incorporate the look, the feel, the refresh into the pitch book that's seamless with everything else that's city-centric. But that content about.
Content's already
Yeah.
right?
Can you come and explain the content piece, Ryan? The content just on the economic development piece, they'll get as an addendum in the process. And then once the award happens, this would be one of our first pieces of collateral that we would hope they would produce.
Yes, ma'am. I think that's correct. You know, hopefully as they're developing the brand guidelines and some of these other things that we're going to implement, they can kind of be working on a template and a layout for this in parallel, going ahead and getting photography and things that we we would want for the economic development pitch book. And then that way, you know, once that's awarded, you know, hopefully they can already have some of that work established and then just go ahead and kind of top of pile the pitch book and hopefully get it done sooner rather than later. So the partnership with the USC Moore School actually came out of a Economic Development Committee meeting last year. Jeff Savage, who runs the Faber Entrepreneur Center over there, was watching one of our committee meetings and reached out to me on LinkedIn afterwards and was, you know, inquiring about, you know, our need to put together this. And I think Councilman Taylor at the time had said his interest in engaging the Moore School. And I said, well, I mean, you watched it on TV. Yeah, we'd absolutely love to do that. And so that coincided well with the beginning of the new semester. So in January, he went ahead and got his MBA students engaged. And so they've started working on it and have been kind of pulling together some things for the past few months. It's interesting because this actually kind of took an expanded track. So as we talked about it more and more, you know, we had the need for the selling points in the pitch book, but one thing that we hit on was our need to also sell to talent attraction and retention. And so the project has actually kind of been broke up within the Moore School. Jeff Savage is working on the elements of the pitch book. His students have put together surveys, so they're going to be going out to local businesses, Soda City. They're going to be talking with the citizens, our business owners, and getting together that intel that we need for the selling book. Jeff Reiling, who runs some of the marketing programs over there, is working with his marketing students, and they're actually going to be helping put together some talking points on how we can better attract and retain talent as well. And so we're going to take both of those elements and then combine them. That work will officially be completed on Monday, April 24th. They will have a meeting at the Moore School at 2 o'clock. And as Ms. Wilson mentioned earlier, I talked with Jeff yesterday. There's an opportunity for some of y'all to come sit in. We'd actually love to kind of have that participation and get some live reception to what they've put together and feedback as well. As soon as we've got the collateral in hand that day, I mean, I think we can pretty quickly put that into an addendum and then flip that right back out to our marketing respondents afterwards. So I think I hit everything on there.
Is it one submission, or is it a lot of different, groups working and all putting in the students?
So it's almost two
class?
separate groups working together. So Jeff Savage's group is working with the pitch points, and then the marketing class is working on the talent.
Okay, so it's not like a
attention.
design
And
competition.
then
Okay.
they're gonna kind of pull it together at the end of the day. I think Jeff Reiling said, even with his marketing students, they may present some different scenarios, and we could even, rate what we liked and what we didn't at the end of it. But at any rate, we get all that collateral back at the end.
So we need to put April 24th on schedules, hold some time for that date?
Yes, sir. Is it at 2 o'clock at the Moore School, and I can provide y'all with the room number.
Get that to their calendar.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ryan specifically? Okay. Any other questions for me, Leisha, Shannon? Okay. We just want to make sure we're framing the RFP. This was really helpful today to hear your feedback. And of course, we'll expect Leisha to be harassing you a little bit about the videos so we can turn those around pretty quickly.
But in the meantime, we have we have stuff that you're taking on the road with you, Ryan, right? Like marketing piece. Okay, perfect.
Okay, thank you all so much. We are moving on to the boards and commissions handbook review. Ms. Ashley Jenkins Wood from my office will lead you through that discussion. I don't know if Councilman McDowell wanted to say a few words. I know this is the product of the Administrative Policy Committee, and we felt like it was important to bring it to full council so that I think there's been a few questions,
There are
Mr.
some
Chair.
grammatical, from what I understand, there has been some changes in terms of grammatical errors. Those has been changed. The content remains the same. We've done our work as a committee. And I think that there are several questions posed by members of the council, and I think those questions has been adequately answered. So, the report is before you. Go right ahead, ma'am.
Good afternoon. As council, as city manager stated, as well as Councilman McDowell, the handbook that you have in front of you is actually the latest version of the handbook that incorporates the changes from last year and even the changes discussed by the Administrative Policy Committee on January 31st at their last meeting, as well as some additional changes proposed by several city council members via email. So what we want to do is just walk through it with you. You also have the minutes from the last Administrative Policy Committee meeting, and those minutes actually detail the changes that were discussed at that meeting. You'll see them on the front, talking about 1 through 4, and then additionally on the second page of the minutes, that's 1 through 14. So we're going to go through those points, and I can actually point out to you where they are in the handbook. And then also, if you have any other questions about any of the pages, we can answer those as well. Did you all have any questions already after reviewing it?
I've got,
Okay, Councilman.
I've got two things that I question.
Okay.
First off, I noticed that you've got Columbia Tree and Appearance Commission listed as Columbia Tree and Appearance Commission, and then in the booklet, it's going back to Columbia Appearance Commission. I think it's very important that we keep the word tree in there. We are a tree city for 30 years, and that's part of our application for Tree City to emphasize our tree canopy. We're the oldest tree city in the state of South Carolina, and I think that we need to leave tree involved with that particular commission.
Yes, sir. I know that was actually something that's listed in the Administrative Policy Committee minutes. That is actually number 3. I know that change was proposed by a council member, and the APC committee discussed changing the name to Columbia Appearance Commission, but obviously it's something that still has to be approved by council as a whole, so.
I would like to ask that we change it back to its original name of Columbia Tree and Appearance Commission.
For this change, I think,
Just out of curiosity.
at the very beginning.
Because a lot of the members kept saying the majority of stuff they're talking about today is appearance, and tree just falls under it. They're not specifically started off in a whole different world. I guess the question is, why couldn't you just encompass that and make it simple? Is there a certain
Well,
reason?
number one is history, that it's been called Columbia Tree and Commission and Columbia Tree and Appearance Commission, and we know it is.
We were a capital place to be before too, now
Yeah.
we are Columbia. I mean, things do change.
Well,
I guess,
we have been Tree City.
Is there
Yes.
a reason for it? Is what I'm
We
trying
need to be able to emphasize that when we send in our application to the Arbor Day Foundation, that we are a tree city. We have been a tree city for over 30 years, and that's part of the application process.
Well,
the
the-
application was not the name, but the actions that
You do have to do things, but I think it is important that we keep the word tree in there.
When we initially talked about this, when Councilman Taylor, his particular suggestion was similar to what you're saying, Mr. Mayor, was that it was all under the appearance sort of umbrellaed into other issues as it relates to the tree. But I also understand what you're saying, Howard. It has been tradition
Right.
that we looked at Columbia Tree Service.
We need
Now-
to keep our tree canopy at the forefront of our minds.
And of course, when we talk about folk wanting to cut down trees, we talk about in communities where folk want to cut down trees, one of the main issues, of course, is that we talk about that tree canopy and how important it is. Now, personally, what has been the intent of other members on this committee relative to that particular issue? Tree appearance as opposed to Columbia tree.
So,
Tree and appearance.
Tree and appearance.
well, I
Why
believe,
change the name? I mean,
Who cares? I mean, look, if y'all
Well,
don't
if you
wanna
don't
change
care,
it,
I care.
don't change it, but I mean, I think the thing came from people who were on that committee saying, we don't really we talk about appearance. That was the whole reason it came from the committee. If you don't wanna change it, let's not change it. And there's no reason to have this massive discussion about it.
I think
Okay.
also on the committee, we know that there was an interest in terms of taking on beautification issues, and so we were trying to encompass that into
Well,
this
I'm not saying
committee.
about the administration.
No, I'm just saying
It
that's why
came
we made
from
this
that
this.
committee, the tree and appearance are the people who said change it to appearance.
Yeah.
They're not the ones that have called me saying, why are y'all changing it?
Well, half the members may not be on the
Yeah,
other side.
I would be opposed to the change simply because I just think when we're talking about trees, we're going way beyond just appearance. And if you try, what we're talking about, we have to put the new trees, and I'm not a tree person, so I'm not gonna get too, no, I'm just being honest. But I do know, like, when we go and plant the trees in the neighborhoods and go to these different Arbor Day things, it is more than just, quote, appearance. And if you were to just make it Columbia appearance, I think you do lose the emphasis that the city has tried to make with respect to trees, maintaining trees, planting trees and the like. I can't even join the canopy session. Yeah, so.
Felt the same way, but who cares? Leave it the way it is, move on.
Okay.
Good God.
I've got one other.
We got people getting shot, we're worried about trees.
Well, that is true, but the staff and I need clarity. That's why we're doing this today, because one thing is said in the committee and everyone's giving their piece, so it doesn't matter to us. We just want to know with clarity which way you all would like for us to have it. So is it
Tree and
Columbia,
appearance.
Columbia Tree and Appearance Commission?
We'll
Okay.
have to change the stationary.
Now, is that consensual?
No, but I don't care enough to fight this one, so.
Yeah,
Well, I'm not gonna put myself over a limb or in a limb. Over something. So if we,
You are.
I'm not.
you got a lot today, Red.
Let's go with what we
on a
got.
roll.
Let's go with what we got, Mr. Mayor.
I mean, it would have needed an ordinance change probably anyway, whatever.
What other changes happen?
Okay.
The other thing is just a question. One of the things we asked the committee to do was to go through all the commissions and see which ones of the positions were designated by state law that they had to be that particular qualification. Design, Development, and Review Commission is one. And I'm not sure if that is state law or whether that's something that the city put in, and there are a couple of others that also have qualifications, and we were, I think, trying to remove as many of the city-specified qualifications for appointments so that we could get a broader pool of applicants.
And what qualifications in specific are you?
Well, under the Design Review Commission, at least one shall be an experienced architectural historian, at least one shall be an experienced city planner, at least one shall be a real estate developer or a licensed real estate broker, and one shall be an architect with historic preservation experience, and the remainder, if any, shall be persons with experience or education shall be qualified for service on such commission. Now, Joe and I had talked about that particular one, and
Architectural
We're into
historian
those
was
things.
the hardest one we've had.
well, architect with historic preservation, and we said, we had agreed to change the wording to say a person with demonstrated historic preservation experience. Yeah, and take the word architect.
And that is that the item that's on their agenda for the 21st? Okay, so we had this discussion and agenda review this morning. And I was asking the staff, Ms.
I know,
Or
Any district.
I think it was that one.
it was the architectural historian. Yeah, that was hard to find.
Architectural historian's the one we've had such a hard time figuring out.
And that was is that in our ordinance or is that a state requirement?
So, and that is the amendment that you're sponsoring, sir.
It was well
What I was about to say, it's on your agenda that's coming out today on your draft
You
agenda.
should read meeting track.
Is it on meeting track?
You don't have it
It's not on
yet.
meeting track,
We're,
it's on
Minute track.
Minute track, okay.
That's why you're reading the wrong track.
But so is that the only one we're cleaning up? Do you have to have an architectural?
So those are the certified local government guidelines from the State Historic Preservation Office and the federal government as well, that allows us to be a certified local government from SHPO to apply for grants.
So we have to leave that one on, but we can take the other one out?
Well, what you're doing, that you all had asked for that amendment, is you're adding to the architectural historian demonstrated preservation experience, so you'll have a wider pool.
Oh, okay, great.
Remember, we couldn't fill that position.
Yeah, diluting it there.
Thanks, Krista.
Are you done, Howard? I'm
think so.
sorry, are you done, Mr. Duval? I did have one question on automatic terminations. On page 10, it says absent from 2 consecutive meetings without a notice, then you will be notified that a third absence may result in automatic termination. But then on page 11, under number 3, we have absence from 2 consecutive meetings without notice can lead to automatic termination. So I'm assuming that's supposed to be 3? Is page 11 supposed to be 3?
Initially.
Item 3 is supposed to be 3. Yes, ma'am.
Got
Okay.
it. We'll make that change.
I don't know that there's a state requirement that we have an oath for commission members, and we've got an oath.
They've always done an oath.
I
You
think
gotta
it's-
sign an oath every time you do one of these commissions.
Yep.
You have for years.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Well, you're not on the commission, you're on the council.
I've been on this Columbia Tree and Appearance
Yeah, but
Commission for 6 years.
1972, when things have changed since then.
This was in the 90s. Did they do that now?
Councilman Herbert, do you have any other?
I did want to clarify too, the 11, I'm sorry, I was talking to Ms. Wilson.
What page?
The limit of 11 members. And so, off the top of my head.
I think it's just the 11 member requirement, Councilman McDowell.
That's actually listed on page 9.
Yeah. And so, do we, how many organizations or boards or commissions is that going to impact? Are they already aware that this is the new recommendation? Or
11.
the maximum of 11, we have a few of them that have more than that. And so, what's the process of rolling them out?
So City Center Partnership has 25, but that's not our committee.
Yeah, I'm not talking about that one, but I do know that we have some of them that are ours. Is it that they roll off, or they'll have to be reelected? or-
They would be rolled off based on their terms, how long they've been on there.
Okay.
And
And
another-
have they been notified of that already?
They have not
Yes.
because they haven't been final, this hasn't been finalized. We're still in the draft format. So we
Okay.
didn't want to issue any statements without it actually being approved by council. And what we're finding is that since we've deferred some of the appointments, the boards like Food Policy, Citizens Advisory Committee to Community Development, Bicycle Pedestrian Committee, they would have had over the amount, but since the appointments have been deferred, they're not over. So we can determine what we'd like to appoint to those up until 11 members, if
Mayor.
council decides to keep that limit.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, not at this last meeting, but at the meeting before, when Joey was still here, I attended that food policy committee. And there was a mention to other members of that committee about that 11. Because I think we got up to about 25 persons on that food policy committee.
There's subcommittees, yeah.
And in that meeting that evening, it was expressed to them that was going to be talked about, and that it was going to reverse itself to 11.
Ad hoc committee, it's different.
Got it. Yes, sir.
But they still wanted, because we hadn't made any, we hadn't done anything with food policy. Is that right, Tina? I mean, I'm talking about you. Ashley, we hadn't done anything because the whole issue of restructuring.
Yeah, it's not just food policy, it's several boards, so the appointments have been deferred. Yes, sir.
And Ashley, after this process, on the 21st, do we take a final vote on this handbook and make it final?
If you all have additional changes, we'll make those changes, and then from there,
I know Ms. Hammond said that she would like for us to vote on it, but it's
Okay.
not required, but I'm just anxious to now, get this going with some of the things that would have to go into place right away in terms of, some of the memberships and some of the expectations around attendance and things like that.
understood.
Just for record purposes, though, it would certainly be good if this could be approved
Yeah,
by
agreed.
council.
So,
agree.
if you don't mind, can
For
you
the
all-
record, yes.
can you go ahead and look at the second page of the minutes that we provided that lists numbers 1 through 14?
What page is that?
Page 2 of the 3 for the minutes from November 16th, 2022. Those numbers 1 through 14, some of them you've already discussed, but we just wanted to bring that before full council in case you all had any questions. Like numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. I know there was 9 and 10 were changes that were made. I can actually give you the page numbers for those. 11, 12.
Actually,
Yes.
going back to number 4, it says applicants must reside within city limits.
Yes.
But on page 6, this does say, unless the member is required by federal law, state law, ordinance, or other bylaws establishing the board or commission to represent a specified organization, agency, group, category, or profession. Not exactly sure what that means, but that is an exception to the residency requirement.
It is.
Somebody
It's
kind of break that down
probably,
to me.
it would probably pertain to a land use board, for example. But yes, it's an exception. Again, this is all in draft mode. So if there's something you want us to eliminate or change, we can do so.
What did we, I was gonna ask you, Pam.
Yeah.
There's some
There's a
state
state
and some
statute.
federal
That's correct.
committees that somebody may be appointed to. So we wanted to have, we included that so it would be, add some more flexibility. TK, you read that for us too, and you were fine with that, just in case there's something, we just wanted to have something out there.
For future, it really doesn't apply to that, but it's for the future.
Have any right now, but we were like, how many times do we want to change this? We can take it out for now if it's confusing.
Well, so I had an example here. I was like, so let's say you needed to have a banker, because I'm just trying to see where would this apply.
So there are some, let me see which ones are, there's some state boards
You're
that
dealing
people
with
are
an
on.
attorney, they all got a wordsmith everything.
Does
That's
this,
how they make their money.
Like a land
Well, no, I
use
just want to
board
understand an example of when it will apply.
are the boards like the comment affected in here, or the comment rep?
That they're appointed by that particular body, okay.
They may not necessarily be in the city, they may
Or
be in
the-
the county.
Does the bylaws of the board or of that board establish that?
Okay.
Would you like us to word it a little bit?
No, I just wanted an example of when it would apply.
Yeah, some of those boards where it's like food policy, or there are some county boards that we have different representatives, transportation boards, there's just
Okay.
where we may place someone.
That's under state statute,
Yeah.
is that right?
Like Richland County Board of Assessment and Appeals, she's over here.
That's not a
And those aren't ours, so
That's
yeah, I'm not really
ours.
worried about those.
But you would appoint.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when we talk about the residency requirements, we were just talking about this whole document and all of those committees is what thought we were talking about. But we can make it clear and say to only city boards and commissions. Because
I think it's gonna be
I always
just
want
the
city
opposite.
represented. I don't know why we wouldn't want it the same way for every board. I mean, we want the city represented.
Well, all of them are in this document though, 'cause you've got,
The city.
well, it's broken out in here, the intergovernmental ones, for example. So it may apply to, that language might apply to one of those, the intergovernmental. I mean, it's in the, unless you all just only want the city ones in this book. But I think y'all were trying to be comprehensive.
I think I'd like to keep it as is.
I think it's clear.
I'm good with it.
Land use boards, intergovernmental boards, funding boards, they're all kind of broken out.
All right, what else, Ashley?
The I've got my business in Columbia, but I live in.
Yeah, well, that has been the overwhelming question. Is
No,
that
you
if you
have to
lived
live
in,
in the city.
if you lived somewhere else and worked in the city and you applied for that job, for that board or commission, we're not doing that anymore.
Because Councilman McDowell, do you remember how we talked about how Richland County doesn't allow city
Yes, ma'am.
residents to participate on their boards? So we
Yes.
want to be able to have as much representation as possible from the city.
So Ashley has you kind of going down this page. We've sunsetted some of these, so that's already happened. You don't see that on your listing on page 17. I think that number 9 is on page 9, about the appointee can serve on the same committee, can't serve on the same committee for another jurisdiction. That was important for the
And that's what we talked
Administrative Policy Committee, so we want to bring that to your attention. And then, the boards can only serve on one committee at a time, except for the Appeals Board, because that, you got to be on that, and, what's the other one you got to be on, Krista? I mean, you're on 2 boards when you're on that board, so we had to keep that way. On the 3rd page, we did talk about, on page 8, you gotta there's a standard 4-year term for boards and commissions, even the ones without term limits. So that was important to the committee that there was only a 4-year term to get some rotation and some new blood. But that they can serve up to 2 terms, because sometimes we had people who were on boards and commissions for a long time and they weren't rotating off. We eliminated the non-voting and the appointed, and the non-voting and the ex officio. So that was eliminated on page 8. And I think, I'm trying to see if there was any other ones that we wanted to make sure you guys were aware of.
Pam, if you could say a word, this is a new, say a word about, page 55.
Yes, sir, I'm sorry.
That was just inserted in this, right? Page 55, 54 and 55, right?
54 and 55, yes, we added those oaths in the Code of Ethics. They were previously in old handbooks, so we just incorporated them in this one. And then we also added 56, was someone signing that they received this handbook. Because you all felt as a committee that was important to acknowledge receipt of the handbook. So we added those documents as well. We'll make the cleanups, we'll add that third one.
55 and 56, right?
Yes, sir. And the other things you guys have mentioned. If you all think of
Howard,
anything
anything
else between now and, I guess,
You got your tree.
So you got your tree?
we could put this
What about the vine on the tree?
on, can we put this on the 21st? Or should we try to do it for?
Yes, please. It
Okay.
is almost April. I would like
Okay.
to put this on the 21st.
Okay.
If we could put that on the 21st, it gives us an opportunity to start the process again.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Because we hadn't done it. we hadn't
Go
done it in
team, go A team.
3 weeks, 3 months. 3 months. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Duvall?
Look at my little island of drinks.
You ready, Mayor? Yes. Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we go into executive session for receipt of legal advice relating to matters covered by attorney-client privilege pursuant to SC Code 30-4-70A2, data request.
Is there a motion, is there a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, could you read the roll, please?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.